They've been deceiving you your entire life. Yes, they deceived you, they deceived me too. They made us believe that success takes years, that money only comes with luck, or that we need to be geniuses to prosper. That's a lie. What I discovered is that you can completely transform your year in just 30 days, if you correctly apply some basic laws of the universe. Sounds absurd? Well, that's exactly what changed my life when I was broke and directionless. Have you ever noticed how, no matter how hard you work, it feels like you're never getting anywhere? Like there's an invisible barrier between you and the life you desire? It's as if there's a force pulling you back whenever you try to move forward. I know exactly how that feels, because I lived it for many years. And I'll tell you one thing, that force does exist, but it's not outside, it's inside your mind. Napoleon Hill described this brilliantly. He said there's a great river of power that flows incessantly. On one side, it carries you upward, towards abundance and wealth. On the other, it drags you down, into scarcity and poverty. The current that will carry you depends on what you think every day. It seems too simple to be true, doesn't it? But think with me, how many times have you caught yourself repeating phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, I'm not lucky, or, it's impossible to earn a lot in my job? Now be honest, how do you feel after repeating these thoughts? When I lived like that, I felt trapped. I earned $4,000 a year, but owed $6,000. It was like running on a treadmill. No matter how much effort I put in, I never moved. I believed the problem was the world, that it was a lack of opportunity, or that I hadn't studied enough. But, in reality, the current that was dragging me down was being fueled every day by my own thoughts of failure. One day, a man placed in my hands a book called Think and Grow Rich. I didn't believe everything that was written there, but I believed that he believed it. And that was enough for me to take the first step. I started observing myself more. I realized that my thoughts were constantly focused on lack, on debts, on difficulties. And that's when I understood, if I continued feeding the wrong current, life could only give me more of that. Have you ever stopped to think that perhaps the reason your life isn't changing is precisely because you're reinforcing the wrong current? That every time you complain about your salary, the government, the crisis, or the lack of time, you're diving deeper into the side of scarcity. It's painful to admit this, but it's liberating to realize that you can choose which current you'll follow. Now, I don't want you to think that everything changes overnight. The truth is that changing the flow of the river requires practice and discipline. But I can guarantee you that the results come quickly. In just 1 year, I went from $4,000 a year to $15,000 a month. Can you imagine the impact that would have on your life today? Imagine waking up and realizing that the problem that tormented you simply doesn't exist anymore, because you have the resources to solve it. Imagine the peace of mind of choosing where you want to work, or even not having to work in the traditional sense. And here's an important point, it's not about being intelligent or lucky. I myself wasn't a genius. It's about starting to direct your thoughts to the right side of the river. And do you know how you can start? Try, for the next 30 days, to observe all the thoughts that come to your mind about money, success, and prosperity. And whenever you identify something negative, immediately replace it with a positive vision, even if it seems forced. It can be something simple like, I am capable of prospering, or, money flows to me in various ways. Don't underestimate the power of this exercise. It's like rowing with a powerful oar towards the current of abundance. Gradually, you'll notice that different situations begin to arise. New people, unexpected opportunities, ideas that didn't come to your mind before. All of this was already there, but you didn't see it because you were stuck in the wrong current. Now think, if your life can change in just 1 year, as mine did, what's stopping you from taking the first step today? Isn't it time to stop fighting against the river and finally let yourself be carried by the current that will lead you to where you've always wanted to go? There's a universal law that governs the way money comes to you. It's the law of compensation. It doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't care about excuses. This law dictates that the amount you earn will be proportional to 3 factors: the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty of someone replacing you. It's simple, but powerful. Think about it, If what you do is useful, if you become exceptional in execution, and if no one can do it exactly the way you do, the money will inevitably come. Most people spend their lives believing they are not valued because the boss doesn't recognize it, because the market is unfair, or because the system doesn't help. But the truth is that you don't need to worry about the other 2 points of the law. The need for what you do already exists, and the difficulty of being replaced will be a natural consequence if you focus on the only aspect that is really in your hands, your ability. I needed to learn this in practice. There was a time when I was frustrated with every job I had. Factories, gas stations, manual labor. I felt trapped in jobs with no future and believed that it was the world that wasn't offering me opportunities. But when I started dedicating myself to being better at what I did, even in the simplest things, I realized that the doors started to open. It wasn't the market changing, it was me. Ask yourself now, how much time do you really invest in improving what you do every day? How many books do you read per month about your field? How many new skills have you acquired in the last year? Statistics show that 70% of people stop studying and learning as soon as they finish school or college. And it's no coincidence that most of them live with financial difficulties. Those who don't progress stagnate. And those who stagnate become replaceable. Look at the example of Steve Jobs. When he was fired from his own company, Apple, he didn't stand still. He continued refining his ideas, developed new projects, came back with even more force and revolutionized not only the company but the whole world. He understood the essence of the law of compensation. It's not about what they take from you, it's about how much you develop until you become impossible to ignore. Now, look around you. How many people do you know who complain every day about their salary, but don't dedicate even an hour a week to becoming better at what they do? It's almost like wanting to harvest without planting. The law of compensation doesn't reward complaints, it rewards results. And here's something that may seem harsh, but it's the truth. If you're not satisfied with how much you earn, it's because you haven't yet become good enough for the market to need you to the point of paying more. This doesn't diminish your worth as a human being, but it shows exactly where you should focus your energy. I myself discovered that the competition I imagined existed was just an illusion. The only person I really needed to compete against was myself. Every day, my goal became to become a little better than I was yesterday. And, when I realized it, it no longer mattered who was beside me. I was unique in what I did, and no one could take that away from me. Now, let me propose something to you. For the next 30 days, choose a skill directly related to your work or your life goal and commit to improving it every day, even if it's only for 30 minutes. At the end of that period, notice how much you've progressed. It's impossible to apply this without feeling changes, because the law of compensation doesn't fail. So, think with me, if everything you desire depends only on how much you are willing to grow, it doesn't make sense to put your energy into complaining or waiting for something external to change. The power is already in your hands. The question is, are you really willing to become so good that you become impossible to ignore? The biggest trap that almost everyone falls into is believing that exchanging time for money is the only way to live. This is the model we've been educated in since childhood: study, get a good job, work hard, earn per hour, per month, or per task completed. But there's a huge problem with this strategy: time is limited. You have 24 hours in a day, and no matter how efficient you are, no matter how hard you try to multitask, there will come a time when there are simply no more hours to sell. This is the harsh truth that 96% of the population ignores, and that's why they remain trapped in a race that never leads anywhere. I know this reality well because I lived in it for years. I sold my time at gas stations, in factories, doing repetitive work, believing that if I worked harder, things would improve. But the more hours I dedicated, the more tired and indebted I became. It's like being on a treadmill: you wear yourself out, sweat, feel like you're moving, but you stay in the same place. How many times have you felt that? Working hard, coming home exhausted, and at the end of the month, when you look at your bank account, you realize you can barely pay the bills? The big mistake is thinking that the only variable in the equation is time. When you believe this, you automatically accept a ceiling for your income. And the truth is that this ceiling is not financial, it's mental. People who live by exchanging hours for money can hardly imagine a life where money flows in other ways. That's why they remain trapped in a cycle of frustration, believing the only way out is a raise or more overtime. But even raises have limits, and the human body can't withstand endless exploitation. Think about the people you know. How many survive on overtime, double shifts, and weekend gigs? They sacrifice their health, family, and downtime, yet still can't build a life of abundance. Now consider this: if this model truly worked, wouldn't it be logical that most people would be wealthy, since most follow this exact path? What do you conclude from this? What I learned is that trading time for money isn't just a limited strategy, it's a strategy that condemns you to stay in the same place. It was only when I realized this that I managed to change my destiny. I understood that I needed to find ways to generate value that didn't directly depend on my available hours. And that doesn't mean working less, it means working smarter, investing in knowledge and strategies that allow me to create leverage. Imagine for a moment having an income stream that continues to flow even while you sleep. What would it be like to wake up in the morning and discover you've earned money without even needing to be physically present? That's the difference between those who remain in the time for money model and those who decide to open their eyes to new ways of generating wealth. Here's a challenge that can change your perception. For the next 30 days, every time you find yourself thinking about money, ask yourself, does what I'm doing directly depend on my time, or could it work without me? If the answer is that it depends on your time, understand that this is a trap. If you can think of ways to generate value that don't require your constant presence, you've already begun to break the chain that binds 96% of the population. I clearly remember the day I realized this difference. I was tired, exhausted from work, and I realized that if I got sick, everything would stop. There was no security, no future. It was painful to face this truth, but it was also liberating. Because at that moment, I understood that I needed to find another path. And it was precisely that decision that opened the door to everything I achieved afterward. So, think seriously about this. How long do you intend to trade hours of your life for a few dollars? How long will you accept living in an equation that's already lost, because there's no way to multiply time? The question you need to ask yourself isn't, how much more can I work, but rather, how can I make money work for me, instead of being its slave? There's a second strategy that, unlike the first, already opens doors to greater possibilities: investing money to make money. Only 3 out of every 100 people do this correctly, and it's no coincidence that they live above average. While the majority continue to sell their time, these people learn to multiply the resources they already have. But here's the detail that almost nobody notices: investing isn't about having a lot of money, it's about knowing how to make money multiply. I've met many people who worked hard, saved what they could, and when they finally managed to save a little, they tried to invest without any knowledge. Do you know what happened? They lost everything. Not because investing doesn't work, but because they believed that all it took was putting money somewhere and expecting miracles. It's like trying to fly a plane without ever having studied aviation. The result is disastrous. The most common mistake is believing that accumulating money is enough. It's not. If you don't know how to make that money circulate intelligently, it slips through your fingers. That's why so many celebrities and athletes, even earning fortunes, have ended up bankrupt. Think of Mike Tyson, for example. During his career, he earned more than $300 million. But because he didn't understand the basic principles of wealth creation and preservation, he lost practically everything. This shows that it doesn't matter how much you earn, it matters how you think and what you do with what you receive. Now, look at the other side. Think of Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors in history. He didn't get rich because he worked longer hours, but because he understood how to multiply every cent that passed through his hands. He learned early on the most important rule: it's not about how much you earn, it's about how you make money work for you. Perhaps you're thinking, but I don't have enough money to invest. That's the objection I hear most often. And the truth is that thinking like that is precisely what keeps most people trapped. The act of investing doesn't begin with large sums, it begins with mindset. When you understand that every dollar can be a seed, you begin to treat money differently. And it's not just about putting it into stocks or real estate. Investing can mean acquiring knowledge that multiplies your opportunities, creating a small side project, or even using part of what you have to open paths that generate returns. I myself have had moments when I had practically nothing. I was in debt, without prospects. If I had waited to accumulate a large sum to begin, I'd still be waiting today. But when I learned to direct even the small resources I had, I realized that the game wasn't about the size of the investment, but about the clarity of the strategy. Recent research from Stanford University has shown that people who learn basic financial education are up to 60% more likely to significantly increase their income over their lifetime. This confirms that it's not luck, it's applied knowledge. When you become financially educated, you stop being easy prey in a world where so many lose everything because they don't know how to handle money. And here's something powerful: the simple fact that you're hearing this now already puts you ahead of the majority. Because 97% of people never stop to reflect on how to invest consciously. They spend, lose, repeat patterns, and at most, complain about the system. But the 3% who stand out decided to break that cycle and learned how to make money grow. So I want you to think, if even people who earned millions lost everything because they didn't apply these principles, what could happen to those who are still building their path but ignore this knowledge? And, more importantly, how would your life be different if you started today to see every resource as an opportunity for multiplication instead of just survival? There's a very small group of people who have discovered the third strategy for generating wealth, and this is where the true transformation happens. Only 1% of the population uses this method, but they concentrate about 96% of all the money circulating in the world. It's not coincidence, it's not luck, and it's not magic. This group understood something simple and powerful: multiple income streams. Most people confuse this with multiple jobs. But working in 2, 3, or 4 different places isn't having multiple income streams, it's just wearing down your body on several fronts. The real secret is to build independent money channels that continue to flow even when you're not present. This means creating systems, businesses, assets, and structures that work for you. It's the difference between being a slave to time and putting time to work for you. I learned this almost by accident. In the beginning, I just wanted an income that would pay off my debts. But when I realized that one source could work even without my constant presence, I started thinking, what if I create another one? And another? Gradually, I built a model where, while I was giving a lecture or participating in a seminar, other income channels were active. I no longer depended on a single flow. This was the turning point that gave me real freedom. Now, stop and reflect. How many times have you been terrified just imagining losing your job? How many times has your heart raced thinking about how you would pay the bills if your only source of income were cut off? This happens because you rely on a single pillar. And any structure that rests on only one point is always vulnerable to collapse. When you create multiple income streams, something incredible happens: the anxiety goes away. You no longer depend on a single salary, a single client, a single opportunity. You have options, and freedom is born from options. That's why the wealthiest don't live in panic, even in the face of crises. They know that if one source diminishes, others remain active. Look at the example of Oprah Winfrey. She didn't limit herself to her television program. She created companies, magazines, digital platforms, and strategic partnerships. Each of these initiatives became an independent source of income, and together they created an empire. The secret wasn't working longer hours, but diversifying intelligently. And here's the essential point: today it's easier than ever to create multiple streams. With the internet, you can build digital businesses, invest in different areas, create products, provide automated services, or even work with affiliate marketing. The limit isn't in external opportunities, but in your ability to see and act. When I started expanding my channels, I realized that I didn't need to be an expert in everything. I could have partners, teams, and collaborators. This not only multiplied my income but also freed up my time. Because multiple income streams don't mean multiple worries. They mean multiplying results while you focus on what really matters. Now, do a simple exercise. Imagine your life today with just one more source of income in addition to the one you already have. It might start small, a few $100s. but consider the impact on your finances, the immediate relief it could bring. Now imagine 3, 4, or 5 streams of income. Do you see how drastically your financial life could change in a relatively short time? This is the difference between living in constant fear of losing everything and living with the confidence that abundance will always flow. The true game of prosperity begins when you understand that relying on a single source is condemning yourself to insecurity, while building multiple sources opens the door to a life where you finally control your future. The world you live in today isn't the same as it was 10, 20, or 50 years ago. The rules have changed, and they continue to change at a speed few people can keep up with. Alvin Toffler said a phrase that marked my life: the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. This has never been truer than it is now. Many people still cling to an outdated mindset. They were taught to believe that the safe path was to study, get a stable job, work for decades, and retire comfortably. But look around. How many people do you know who followed this script precisely and yet still live anxiously, in debt, or unfulfilled? How many people retired only to discover they can't maintain the lifestyle they dreamed of? The problem isn't that these people failed, the problem is that the game changed, and they are still playing by outdated rules. I myself had to unlearn many things. When I left school, I believed that was the end of the line, that without a diploma, there was no future for me. It was painful to carry the feeling of failure, as if I were condemned to hard, unpromising work. But over time, I realized that true education doesn't just happen in schools. It happens when you decide to learn what the world truly requires of you to prosper. Unlearning was essential. I had to let go of the idea that only people with titles could get rich. And relearning showed me that what truly creates opportunities is the ability to adapt, absorb new knowledge, and put it into practice quickly. Today, the world demands something completely different. It asks that you be flexible, creative, and open to new things. People who cling to old certainties end up falling behind. Just look at giant companies that dominated entire markets and disappeared because they couldn't adapt. Blockbuster, for example, was one of the biggest in entertainment, but it refused to change when technology transformed film consumption. Meanwhile, Netflix, which started small, understood the new rules and became a global powerhouse. The difference wasn't the initial size, it was the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this applies to your life as well. How many times have you clung to phrases like, "I've always done it this way," or, "That doesn't work for me"? Every time you say that, you're closing the door to a new opportunity. The reality is that it doesn't matter how much you already know or have already achieved. If you're not willing to update your way of thinking, you'll be stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. Research from the Harvard Business School shows that professionals who dedicate themselves to continuously learning new skills are up to 70% more likely to triple their income over a lifetime. This proves that wealth isn't in doing more of the same, but in constantly reinventing yourself. Every time you open yourself to new knowledge, you create an advantage that most people will never have, because most people simply stop learning. I know that change can be scary. Change requires leaving the familiar and diving into something that seems uncertain. But consider this: what's truly more uncertain, continuing to insist on a model that has already proven not to work, or having the courage to learn something new that can open doors you never imagined? I continue to reinvent myself to this day. Every day I seek to learn something that makes me grow. Because I understand that the world will never stop changing, and if I stop, it will leave me behind. That's exactly what differentiates those who prosper from those who merely survive. Prosperity isn't for the strongest, but for those who adapt best. Now, imagine what would happen if, for the next 30 days, you committed to learning one new thing that could increase your market value or open a different opportunity. It could be studying a new digital skill, learning about investments, or even developing skills that improve your relationships and communication. At the end of that period, you would realize you are capable of much more than you imagine. So the question isn't whether the world will continue to change, because it will. The question is, will you change with it, or will you insist on playing by old rules, hoping that a game that's already over will start working again? It's not the time you dedicate, it's not luck, it's not the world out there. It's your way of thinking, learning, and acting that determines which stream you'll be in, scarcity or abundance. And that's the most powerful point you need to take with you. Now, if you want to continue on this journey and climb another step in your wisdom evolution, becoming 1% better than you are today, the next video appearing on the screen will show you exactly how to do that. Thank you for being with me until now, and I'll see you in the next video.